nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everybody. Changes to the agenda. We are going to add the strategic communication training discussion under 7B. Anybody else have any other changes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Robin. We're eager tonight. Second by Mike. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed state no. That carries. Guests in open forum, is there anybody here to speak to council tonight? I don't see our signed up guests, so we will move on to committee reports, presentations, and awards. Park and Rec is up first.
Park and Rec, it was a very short meeting. We met last Monday, and youth baseball was there. They're promoting selling sponsorships, banners, etc. And evidently Greg had some questions on the proceeds from that. So Chris is going to be talking with you about it. I don't know where he's at, but he'll be talking with you about it. And that's really all we did. That's the only thing we had on the agenda, and everything else just, we did talk about the program for renting out the fields and stuff, and that's going online, and they're gonna gradually work into it. They're not gonna just dump it on there. So we'll see how that goes. We're hoping that it goes good. And that was it.
Okay. Any questions for Mike? Fire Board, we met last Monday, the 26th. Still working on the transition to HK, who is doing our accounting and all those types of things. They did get the files sent to them from our previous vendor. Payroll went well. We had a couple people that didn't have their information in, so they didn't get paid yet, but that's kind of on them. Hate to be that way, but turnout gear was ordered, and we didn't really, that was about it, because we're still changing over to the new record keeping system, so we didn't do a lot of budget review or look at the CIP. We did talk about a tanker truck, and cost for that was, compared to what we had in the CIP, was I think about $350,000 short, and it would be 2 years out. So fire trucks continue to be really expensive, and they take a long time to get. So we will be having further discussion on that coming up. Any questions on Fire Board? All right, Planning Commission?
Planning Commission, we met last Monday also. We reviewed and approved our calendar for the year, and the only other thing we did was elect chair and vice chair. We were supposed to have a public hearing, but the paperwork didn't get done in time to get it advertised, so very short meeting.
All right. Questions about planning? How about Joint Planning Board?
Joint Planning met last Tuesday night. We heard a CUP draft resolution for curbside waste for a contractor's yard. And then we just had some discussion on the zoning ordinances.
Perfect. Any questions for Robin? Mr. Ebensteiner, are you going to talk about the annual Fire Relief Association meeting?
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Annual meeting was last Wednesday. They didn't serve a meal, so attendance was a little lower than prior years. But there was about 15 or 20 of us that met. Even some of the firefighters had mentioned, like, well, if they had food, more people would have showed. But good discussion. The biggest item just talked about their move to para. So the pension plan now moved to the para plan. So they're just managing their pool of funds. With that, they adopted new bylaws and then also elected their officers. They just elected the same officers that were in place to kind of oversee the transition to para. Talked about the calendar sales or calendars that they sent out, their fundraisers, so those should have shown up in people's mailboxes. Kind of changed the format this year, so save some money and put out a good product there. And then they talked about their events throughout the year. That was about it.
All right, thank you very much. And Golf Committee.
Golf Committee met this afternoon. We looked at the financials. There are still a couple of adjustments that need to be made before they're finalized for the year. We reviewed the cart path plan, the cart path updates planned for this season, and the pond lining we talked about. We looked at membership rates for the upcoming season. We had some discussion about vacation hours for some of our full-time golf employees, extending them so they can take more vacation during the down season. And we talked about some red circle pay for a couple of groundskeepers. That was it.
All right. Questions for Robin on golf? Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Move on to number 7, Board Committee and Consultant Reports. We have the fourth quarter financials from 2025. Mr. Ebensteiner's up again.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. Definitely preliminary figures. We're in the midst of our audit entries, and I think this week we just wrapped up. A lot of our accruals should be back in the last year, so we'll be making a lot of those adjustments. But just wanted to get in front of you and kind of lay out where we're at with fourth quarter numbers. So starting with the general fund, tax revenues ended up a little over 99% through December as expected. These flow to the city after collection by the county. And then we did receive our January settlement, so collections were just right around 100%. So great to see there. Another item to note, intergovernmental revenue exceeded budget expectations, received approximately $600,000 with a budget of around $447. So a lot of times we don't know where police aid and fire relief aid and some of those are going to come in. So we budget from what we received the prior year, and a lot of times those exceed expectations. So police aid exceeded expectations by around $50,000, fire aid another $28,000. So that resulted in that positive variance. Charges for services for the community center ended up at 101% of budget, so favorable and reflects the continued strength in membership up at the community center. Interest revenue within the general fund at over 200% of budget, really reflective of the interest rate environment. So really just performing well. Had $188,000 of revenue at budget at $80,000. So as we went through the 26 budget cycle, we did bump up our expectations for 2026 within that line item. General fund expenditures, 91.6% budget through the year. Budget contributors really did a great job of managing expenses, as well as just other items that came up. Only item really significantly over budget, fire aid, which is really just a pass-through. So we got more aid and we passed more back out, and that's budgeted as a net zero. General fund balance, as a reminder, city's policy maintain 60% of the next year's expenditures as a minimum. Really that helps out with cash flow with the collection and timing of tax settlements. Based on preliminary results, we should see a good reserve increase within the general fund, approximately $900,000. This will definitely provide ability to put additional into reserves to meet that minimum, as well as we'll bring more back to council, talk with budget and finance. A lot of times that overage gets transferred over into future improvements and or is used for capital needs as they do come up. We have some 26 items that are somewhat unbudgeted that we may strategize on using some of those for one-time expenditures there. EDA fund revenues largely tied to property taxes, collections at 99.6%, so great to see there. Rockefeller, the philanthropy grant, I feel like we've been talking about this for a couple years now, but we did have about $125,000 that rolled into 25 from 24. So that's had some positive revenue implications. And that really drives that overage in expenditures because we did expend all those grant proceeds in 25. So that grant is wrapped up. Now, golf course fund. Once again, to note, no operating levy over at the golf course. Revenues came in, preliminary numbers are great. Revenues at 107% of budget overall, 116% for ops, and then 99% for food and beverage. So overall expenditures in golf at 103%, and preliminary numbers returning $132,000 of income. So great work at the golf course. Water fund, over on the enterprise side, revenues at 100% of budget, Great to see. Utility charges at 96%, and then other revenues came in strong with some of those water access connection receipts as well as strong interest income. Expenses at 97%, with a lot of those capital projects that you've seen come through with Chris and his staff later in '25. So great to see those wrapped up, and currently the cash needs are being met. We look at those funds on more of a cash needs basis, and both on the operating and the capital side. Very, very healthy there. And then on the wastewater side, we have the domestic and industrial. Starting with domestic, fund revenues, a little behind budget for utility charges, right around 90%. But leachate fees and interest income are really driving those positive revenue variances. In total revenue in the wastewater domestic fund is at 109%. Then expenses at 94 for the total year budget. And then many of those capital projects were also completed in '25, so meeting and exceeding those cash needs as well within domestic wastewater. And then industrial wastewater revenues are tracking as expected, slightly higher revenues at 105% and expenses at 101. And we did in '26 would be the last payment for the bonds related to industrial wastewater. So great to see that was a 10-year project that's just wrapping up on the debt side. So otherwise, Budget and Finance had completed a review of the December financials and had discussed and preliminary figures now, but as we get through audit prep, and we'll be in front of you soon with some audit numbers. So with that, I can stand for any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Mark? Just a comment to all, Mark, all your staff, all city staff, that's a pretty awesome end of the year budget report. So thank you to everybody for your work on the expenditures and revenues. That's good news.
Awesome. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. We'll go back up to number 5 and welcome our guest from the Sherburne County Attorney's Office. If you want to come on up and introduce yourself, and welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I apologize for being late, and so I appreciate you taking me out of turn. I had a different idea of what the level of gas was in my tank when I left than what was actually the case, so I apologize. So rather than not get here at all, because I'm on the side of the road, I got here a few minutes late, so thank you for indulging me. So my name is Dawn Nyhus. I am the Sherburne County Attorney. You may recall that I was here last year speaking with then County Attorney Kathy Haney. So I took over the position in May, was appointed by the county board. So I'm here kind of following in her tradition to thank you and talk a little bit again about the prosecution contract that we hold in my office with the city, and just to give you a few numbers from what we've seen this year. One of the things that I like to talk about when we're talking about what the prosecution contract entails and really what prosecution of cases entail is there's a lot of facets to it. You may see it ultimately in charges or citations or convictions, but it starts obviously with the police work of Becker Police Department. I've worked with the chief for a long time and this department, and it's always been, I think, a really good relationship. And they will refer cases to us, whether it's citation, whether it's long form, to have us consider charging by a criminal complaint. And the work involved really will depend on a specific case, but it can be, and certainly involves going to court. We have certain court appearances that are required for different levels of cases. If a defendant makes a challenge to certain constitutional issues, we may have a contested hearing, which might include calling officers to testify. We will litigate a number of things. If someone brings a mental health issue forward, we might talk about those evaluations. So there's a lot of work that might go in, even if we don't ultimately go to trial. We still have seen a lot of trials. That uptick has continued within the last several years. If I were to tell you why, I would be guessing, but we've really seen that more in the numbers within the last handful of years. So our attorneys are hard at work, and there's a lot that goes into that casework. that's included when we talk about prosecution. We also have responsibilities under the Victim Witness Act, and so if people are victims to crimes, we do our best to help them navigate through the process, talk to them about each stage, and then if we do get to trial or sentencing with convictions, sometimes there's also appellate work that's involved. So that's just kind of a snapshot of what you might see or hear offline about what might be involved in prosecuting a case. As far as the numbers for City of Becker, we did run those for this year, and I just wanted to share those with you. So we have, these are open cases, or cases I should say, that have been open between January 1 of 25 and then just end of 2025. We have handled 32 felony cases, 31 gross misdemeanors, 59 misdemeanors, and 7 petty misdemeanors. A few fell into an unknown category. I'm not sure why that is, but it's just a few. And so that includes both charged and uncharged cases. One of the things that we also do is obviously make a decision on whether or not a case should be brought forward and should be charged. And so that will also include an analysis and then a declination if we don't go forward. So that's just, like I said, a little bit of a snapshot. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that I can. Otherwise, thank you for allowing me to be here, and I'll be happy to be here again.
Okay. Questions for Ms. Nyhus?
Not this time.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, under 7B, we have the strategic communications training proposal that Mr. Drew just handed out, and I'll let Greg talk more about that.
So Mayor Kobinger and City Council members, Rob Lear reached out to me, probably around at the end of the session last year, so May or so, and it was Becker was in the news, of course. Amazon had decided they were going to move out of the state. Obviously Google had left before that, and he just expressed concern. Rob runs a communications company and said, is there something that he could do to help us out if there was anything that the city felt like it needed to communicate better with? And I'd worked with him at South Lake Minnetonka PD. We did a crisis communication training session probably in the early 20s when there were a number of officer-involved shootings back to back, and how to respond to those and communicate effectively on the part of the JPA board. And so all the mayors and the administrators participated, found it very worthwhile. What he's proposing here, I met with him here about a month or so ago, is doing more of a strategic communication plan that we would develop some skills and training that would help us communicate with a variety of stakeholders. Involve a workshop for about 4 to 5 hours, do some exercises among leadership. City council would be there. And what I found effective at the last training was you videotape when you're speaking, and you learn very quickly how it's different than what you think you're saying. And so he put together that proposal. I sent it out a couple of days ago. The mayor and I visited yesterday about it and thought it should come here for your consideration if it's something you want to do or not pursue. And so I'll be happy to answer questions.
Anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I think it's a relatively good idea. I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, I know last summer when I went to the League of Minnesota Cities training, Burnsville had talked about the fact they had a strategic communications plan and had worked through it, and with the tragedy they had, I mean, it's something you wish you never had, but it's not a ton of money, and it would be even less money if we ever had an incident where we needed to make sure.
The only question I would have is what staff would be participating?
I see the council and leadership.
So like yourself, Phil, and
Yep. Jacob, Josh, Mark.
okay.
Maybe not. There's not too much finance controversy, right? But yes,
gonna serve lunch anyway.
somebody like Chris Lisson as well. If the city gets a boil order for water, that's the kind of thing that falls into your lap, and you need to be prepared to speak about it. And so that's the kind of training that this would. It's not necessarily crisis, but it's just how do you effectively communicate and what to remember when you're out talking.
And the chief we'd invite,
Oh,
obviously.
certainly.
And
Yes.
I would like to invite our fire chief as well, because it's, you know, and the fire board can pay for that portion or whatever, but. I talked to someone who works in rail safety, and he went through this, and he said it was extremely eye-opening, because you think, yeah, I did a pretty good job, and then you watch yourself and you're like, I am an idiot.
I really don't want to watch myself.
Right?
That's the big thing.
But, well, we're gonna be very kind, of course, when we're all there, and, but,
Yeah, tell me about it.
yeah. I personally think it would be good for us and help us refine our message even, that'll be part of it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So would you be looking for a
I,
motion?
no, what I think that the consensus is to go forward, I would have him send up, I'm gonna visit with him about price, but I would have him send up a contract and then you would act on it. And, then, but I think in the meantime, I'll tell him it's a go, and I'll work up some type of a doodle calendar and circulate that to everybody, and we'll see if we can find a date.
People good with that?
Yep.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Moving on to the consent agenda, Mr. LaRue again.
All right. Items for adoption, approval, or review on tonight's consent agenda include the hiring and termination report, payment of the bills, the minutes of the January 20th city council meeting, the minutes of the January 20th executive session, the minutes of the December 15th fire board meeting, and the minutes of the January 16th police management committee meeting. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions on the consent agenda? If not, we'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mike, a second by Becky. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. That motion carries. All right, anniversary announcements. We have some part-time employees. Lori, congratulations on 7 years. And it's, yeah, you're, on Thursday, it'll be exactly 7. Congratulations. Grant Jansen's in the police department, 6 years. Emily Keenan at the community center, 6 years. And Kimberly Riley at golf course, 6 years. And our full-time employees, Shannon Mortensen, 2 years. Congratulations. And Anthony Nergang, 7 years, our city hall administrative assistant. Christine Olin, for our accounting technician, 9 years. David Rydberg with police, 9 years. Michael Behringer at water, 26 years. Matt Keller, the sewer wastewater operator, 3 years. Christopher Kroll, 8 years at the wastewater plant. And Robert Ryerson, 21 years, one of our operators at the wastewater plant. Congratulations to all those employees. Thank you for your continued service. We appreciate it. Anybody have anything else? Had a quick note, the industrial park roundtable, I thought went very well. Jacob could add if he wanted to. I think we ended up with 21 or 22 business owners there. Got a lot of good feedback. One of the things they talked about was a sign. That's one thing we heard, maybe some signage over there. And it was pretty unanimous, I think, that everybody wanted to come back next year, so a variety of different people. Microsoft sent a couple people up, which we appreciated. They drove through some not great weather to be here, and yeah, there was a lot of good conversation, and staff I know did a little debrief after, so thank you to all the staff that talked that day as well. So I thought that went well. Anything else? All right, if not, we'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
We have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion by Robin, second by Becky. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, state no. Meeting's adjourned at 5:25.